Mr. Jocelyn. I'll start my questions. I'll start my question with Ms. Farid. You, for years, been a fierce advocate for the rights of women and girls in Afghanistan, as women have made real strides and emerged in key roles throughout society. Your leadership as a role as a member of the parliament, the many able and distinguished Afghan women with whom you work are key examples. I know you touched on this in your opening statement, but can you describe the current situation for women and girls following the Taliban takeover in urban settings like Kabul and provincial cities like in your home of Herat and in rural settings?
Thank you. I'm not familiar with this. Thank you so much. The situation in Afghanistan is very, very difficult for women. Like 15 million of the population of Afghanistan that are women think that they are abandoned and they have been forgotten. I mean, there was no precondition of women's rights, human rights, the last 20 years of the achievements of Afghan women and Afghan people and Afghan democracy in the peace process with the Taliban. And even with in the withdrawal, there was no precondition. And that's the problem that the people of Afghanistan are thinking, that why, and especially women, why after 20 years we have been forgotten at this level, that 50% of the people that are women and many front runners of the democratic process in Afghanistan, actually they are in a situation that they don't know where to hide, where to escape. Instead of championing them, we actually cannot help them at this point. They are very helpless.
So what more should the U.S. and our allies do to protect the rights of women and girls? What specifically should we do?
In fact, people of Afghanistan, women of Afghanistan, they deserve the government they want. They deserve the government that was not enforced on them, the government that they want to choose. And U.S. has to help the Afghan people, the government that was not forced by atrocities, by violence on the people of Afghanistan. This has to be the strategy, that we have to stand with the people of Afghanistan, and we have to be against the enemies of people of Afghanistan and those who have no plan and a strategy to help the people, but they have the strategy to attack the West. And they have no strategy to do the governance in Afghanistan. See the healthcare system, see the education system, see women, see girls, that they cannot attend secondary school. So the reality is that those terrorist syndicate that took place in Afghanistan, they have no idea how to govern Afghanistan. There has to be a group of NGOs, internal NGOs, regional NGOs, international NGOs, to fill the gap, to fill the vacuum, and support the Afghan women through providing jobs for them, through capacity building, through providing the basic needs of healthcare and education to them. At the same time, Taliban should not decide. Taliban should not say who should receive this aid. Taliban should not put condition on it. And this is the option that we can start with. But there has to be more options to explore in the future.
Let me follow that way of thinking about the Taliban obviously not deciding with Ms. Eckert and then Mr. Smith, the same question. Treasury's issued new license to support the continued flow of humanitarian assistance to people of Afghanistan and other activities that support basic human needs while upholding and enforcing our sanctions against the Taliban and the Haqqani network. What more should Treasury and State be considering, including with international banks, to ensure the people of Afghanistan continue to receive aid without benefiting the Taliban? Ms. Eckert first, then Mr. Smith. Answer that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think OFAC needs to issue additional general licenses authorizing NGOs programs that go beyond basic human needs. And here we're talking about development programs. We're talking about areas of protection and prevention. We're talking about women's programs, conflict and stabilization, education. These are all programs with which the international community has invested billions of dollars over the last 20 years. And they help the individual Afghan population, not the Taliban. These programs should continue. The way OFAC has currently defined the general licenses, they apply to a narrower set of activities. I think that what we need to do is to broaden it to what that used to exist for Yemen, Burma, and Ethiopia for the broad range of NGO activities.
You respond to that too.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. I think that's right. Their licenses and exemptions need to be expanded. I gave an example in my opening statement that if we really want to expand and limit the exposure of the average Afghani, significantly more licenses are going to be needed. But outside licenses, there's one other component I wanted to talk about, and I mentioned it briefly in my opening statement, and that what to do with or how to leverage safely the funds that Afghanistan has outside the country. Now, we of course, should not just identify them as Afghani and let them go. That is not wise. As a matter of sort of technical capacity, the Taliban doesn't have that capacity to even manage them. But I do think that the Iranian model, in which you have funds that have been basically frozen overseas in jurisdictions that continue to buy Iranian oil, those funds are not able to be repatriated to Iran, but they can be used. And they're used with the oversight of local institutions, with the U.S. looking on very carefully for the provision of basically approved bilateral trade, which is humanitarian goods and other sort of goods in kind. And I think if you focus on using these funds not to provide funds, but rather to find goods to the Afghanistan people, will there be some seepage to the Taliban? Unfortunately, I think there will be. But it's much, much harder to make fungible in-kind goods than just opening the spigots of cash. So I think we need to be very creative and learn the lessons we've learned in other jurisdictions in this context as well.
Thank you. Senator Toomey.
Thank you, Mr.